What's up, Bearcats? This is Batschaefcrazy. We're here in Bryan, Texas with my very good friend Dustin Batson. He is a prior Marine and currently a bar owner as well as a father and a husband. He's doing awesome. I met him when I first got back from Afghanistan, and his first location was West End Elixir in College Station. We had a ragtag group of veterans. That was pretty awesome. And since then, you've moved towards Bryan, Texas. We started in the LaSalle Hotel, and shortly after we made a speakeasy in the downstairs, and then shortly after that we moved across the street to open a cigar lounge, and then we also got third floor cantina, which we turned into a nightclub. We did comedy, burlesque. What else did we do?
Dueling pianos, jazz. That's my daughter back there, if y'all can hear that.
You absolutely can, and she's wonderful. Hi, sweetheart. And and since then you've opened, what was that, another speakeasy down the street?
Yeah, so Marriott bought the hotel that we had, the Downtown Elixir, and then 5 Knocks in. So they didn't like kick us out, but they kind of gave us like a year and a half heads up that, hey, when this lease is up, it's over. So that was October of 23, and so that's when I like how I look to you because I don't remember. So that's when I opened Word of Mouth, which is the current speakeasy. It's in an alleyway. There's no signs. There's no windows. There's no social media on it. You can't Google it. And there's a keypad with a 4-digit key code to get in, and it changes every day.
I think that's one of my favorite things about every establishment that you've opened and run is the fact that you find a theme and you go as far into that theme as possible, as humanly possible.
Well, I wasn't even going to call it a name, and so one time this guy was like, well, how are people going to know about it? And I was like, just word of mouth. He's like, that'd be a pretty cool name for a bar. I was like, damn, you're right. Yeah. All right, well, I guess we'll call it that.
That's fantastic. So let's do a little Tarantino. Let's go to the very beginning. Where were you born, Dustin?
I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. Technically, I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but I was only there because it was a specific women's hospital.
Right, but you grew up in NOLA.
Correct.
Awesome. So, what was your childhood like? Did you have a bunch of friends? Were you kind of a loner? What was it that got you to the point where you jumped in the Marine Corps?
I was for sure a loner. I was kind of a comic book nerd. Eventually I started getting into sports, and then I started getting a little bit more friends from there. I joined the Marine Corps just because I was a nerd, and I got really into this game called Metal Gear Solid. And all I ever wanted to do from playing that game was like, I want to be like super soldier. So, just being ignorant to like the military in general, I was like, well, I'll just be a Navy SEAL because I've heard of that. And so all I ever wanted to do is be Navy SEAL. And then I eventually went up to go join the Navy, and they were like, you can absolutely join the Navy, but you cannot be a SEAL. And I said, why not? And they said, because your eyesight doesn't meet the requirements. And I was like, well, there's nothing else in the Navy I want to do. So I literally went next door and joined the Marine Corps and did infantry.
Hell yeah. And how long were you in the Marine Corps?
8 years.
8 years? And how many tours did you do?
3, 2 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, and I actually spent the summer of 2022 in Ukraine as a volunteer, though, not as a Marine, obviously.
Right. That's very cool. So we do 8 years in the Marine Corps, you do a couple tours, and then you get back, and what brings you, obviously you get brought back to the States, but what brings you to Texas specifically?
My dad lived not far from here. He lives in like the Houston area, the Woodlands, and so I wanted to be closer to him. And I originally wanted to go to U of H, but I got rejected from U of H and accepted here, so then I moved here. And started just working down here. And
what were you going to school for?
Petroleum engineering is what originally the intent was, but I just never, after a while I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And the only reason I went to school because one, it was free, and 2, didn't know what I wanted to do when I got out of the Marine Corps. And 3, my dad was in oil and gas, so he kind of just guided me that direction.
Little legacy pathway.
Well,
kind of thing.
Yeah, he was just, well, I can get you hooked up, and playing the whole nepotism card. But I was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. This sucks. Like, awesome. Everything about it.
All right. So we get through the Marine Corps, we do our tours, we get into A&M, we're doing petroleum engineering. It's not necessarily what you wanted to do, but what was it that you kind of got to that tipping point where you were like, I'm done being an Aggie, I'm ready to go be a bartender?
Well, it got time to start looking at internships and stuff like that, and then I was going to do an internship with Anadarko, and then, I don't know, I just had this weird epiphany where I was like, I kind of had a panic attack. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. And so somebody, I think it was my girlfriend at the time, had suggested just take a semester off. And that was 11 years ago, so I don't think I'm going back.
Right.
You gonna blow out or anything? No, you're good. All right, cool.
Hi, baby girl. You wanna be on TV? We're back. So we get to the point where you're getting ready to take a semester off. How did you come into contact with your business partner and get to the point where you guys were living in the bar working on it?
So his name was Chandler, and we were actually roommates in college.
Okay.
And so he long graduated. He graduated my freshman year, actually, I think, or either that or sophomore year. And he had moved away for a little bit, then he came back, and you know, at the time I was bartending, and he would come see me, and we kind of just got this idea. I was like, let's open a bar. And I mean, I'd run bars as far as like management goes, but you know, I never owned one. And so he had a lot of money saved up, and he was, you know, comes from a, you know, well-off family. But we didn't have a lot of money. So we had like less than 70 grand, I think, between us, and we decided to pull the trigger. And I remember the first project we had to do, we called out a contractor to give us a quote, and it was something like 9 grand. And it was gonna take weeks and weeks and weeks to do, and all this other stuff. And we were like, we can't afford that. I mean that's almost 20% of whatever, you know, our total savings is, and it really wasn't even that big of a project. So then we're like, let's just go to Home Depot and do it. And so we did it, and it cost us like $90 in materials and like a day's labor. So then we just were like, well, screw it. I don't know.
It's fine.
Okay. She doesn't speak English, so it's fine.
Not yet.
Yeah. Yo no hablo inglés. But then we decided we'll just do everything. But even with doing all that, the day we opened the doors, we had less than $100 in the account.
Right.
And so Chandler looked at me and he was like, dude, we got to kill it today or we're done. Because we had like payroll coming up and everything else.
Right, and I mean, we already know how the story ended. You did great that first night. I came on, I think, the week after, and yeah, it was a wild ride. Yeah. Some of my fondest memories of my 20s are working under you and doing everything that we did. So we've already talked about how you moved to Bryan and all that. Let's talk about how you've used your platform as a bar owner to give back to the community, because I know we did a lot of stuff, especially during COVID.
Yeah, so during COVID, or just in general, like every Thanksgiving, we would do free meals for anybody. You just had to come in.
Yep.
Didn't matter if you're rich, poor, homeless.
Had somewhere to go, didn't have somewhere to go.
Yeah, it was free food. That way you can just hang out with us. And every Christmas we do a toy drive. You bring in an unwrapped or
unopened toy.
Oh yeah, unopened toy, and it's original packaging, and you get a free drink. And you bring 10 toys, you get 10 drinks. And then we donate those every year. I remember the first year it was me and Colin, but we've done a lot of stuff together. We donated to Phoebe's Home,
yep,
which is the battered women's children's shelter.
Begrudgingly waking up early Christmas Eve.
Yeah, we went to St. Joe's Hospital, to the pediatric wing, gave all kids their toys. We've done a lot. Yeah.
Why do you feel like it's important to do that?
Karma, really, more than anything. But also during COVID, we did a fundraiser where all the male staff wore Speedos, and we did a car wash. We washed like hundreds of cars that day.
Yes.
There was a lot, like an hours long wait to get into line just to see our schlongs and Speedos. And people waited, and then it was donation, so you could potentially get a free car wash, and a lot of people were donating a lot of money, and then we put it into a fund called the downtown Bryan business fund. So yeah, instead of just blindly giving money to businesses, what they would do is they would say, hey, I can't pay my electric bill. So then they would submit the bill to the fund, and then they would just pay the bill. So that way, there's no waste or anything like that. And then we did a calendar shoot, and I actually have a calendar right next to you somewhere.
It's too dark, but I will find it, and we'll definitely get some shots.
Yeah, and we did
You're talking about the boudoir in the bar.
Yeah. We did a calendar shoot of all our male staff, and we're all naked. Obviously
to varying degrees.
To varying degrees of nakedness. And we sold those, and we sold them internationally. Technically, we're international models because we sent some of those to some of my Marine friends in Japan, stuff like that. So yeah, we're international models.
That's awesome.
I'll put that on my resume right now.
August is the picture of all of us at the car wash too, right?
I don't remember the month, but yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. That's awesome.
That was one of the worst sunburns I ever got in my life.
Oh, it was definitely bad. The sunburn, the after effects and the recovery were pretty rough, but that was such a cool day because the juxtaposition, like we said, it was in the middle of COVID, and the streets were empty for days. And then this particular day, it looked like the busiest day that Brian had ever seen because the streets were filled.
We also did it wasn't really for charity, but we couldn't open the bar and restaurant because of COVID rules in Texas, and so we rented out the top 2 floors of the hotel that we were in, and we took out all the furniture, and you can rent a room for like $5 an hour because the loophole was you could do room service, and so you can bring your people in there, and we took the bed out because we had some people who, of course,
taking advantage of it,
yeah. And so we took the bed out, and we had put like dining room tables in there, and yeah, we would just serve the room like it was a table, and
And business was crazy.
Business was great because we were the only game in town.
Yep, and people loved the idea of having a quaint little, romantic, isolated room to just enjoy their evening.
Some people liked it too much.
Some people did like it too.
That's why we took the beds out.
That was very cool. So currently, Dustin, I know you've been traveling around a little bit to do your bartending in different capacities. Not so much working in your own establishment, but you've been kind of putting on your competitors' gloves and going out there and testing your chops. Tell me, what is the motivation to go do that? What is the thing that you've learned? What is the number one thing that you've learned from the experience of going out and doing these competitions? And what is it that you hope to continue to bring to these competitions?
So there's like a role model of mine. His name's Steve Schneider. He was a Marine, and when he got out, he actually got a traumatic brain injury, and so they medically discharged him. And so he started being a bartender in New York City, and started off at a few bars, but got famous by working at this bar called Employees Only. And they actually did a documentary, not necessarily on him specifically, but he was in it, called Hey Bartender. Recommend seeing that. It's awesome. And anyway, he's like world famous now, and he's done a bunch of competitions, and he owns a bunch of bars all over the world, and he only bartends at one in New York. And so I had reached out to him on Instagram one day, and I was like, look, you don't have to pay me. I'm gonna come work for you for a couple months in New York, and then possibly just learn from you. I never thought in a million years he'd even respond. It was just and the next day, first message was like, here's my phone number, call me. And so I was starstruck, because if you're a football fan, that's like Tom Brady, right? If you're a bartending fanatic like me, that's it doesn't get better than that. So I almost didn't call him. I was starstruck, and so my wife eventually was like, you gotta call him. So I actually called him in my truck, so that way I can get alone. Yeah. And he was like, hey, I'm going to this event called Tales of the Cocktail, which is actually the world's biggest cocktail conference in the world, and it's in New Orleans every year. And so I was like, okay, I'll be there. And I thought I was gonna maybe see him at one of his events where he'll say hi, and we'll say hi, and then I'll get flushed out with the hustle and bustle. But no, he invited me to his hotel, the hotel bar, not to be weird. And we drank for 2 hours, and he was by the end of it, he was like, hey man, there's no point in you coming to New York. He's like, there's nothing I can teach you. It seems like you already know it. He's like, but I tell you what I will do. He's like, I'll come to your bar, bartend, as like a guest bartender. And I was like, absolutely. So he should be coming soon. But he started telling me about all these competitions, and that's how he got his name out there, really. So I applied to one called Bar Boss, and got to it was like 212,000 people entered it, and I got to the final 8, and then they flew us all to Nashville to compete, and then I tied for winner, but I lost the tiebreaker, which the tiebreaker was kind of lame anyway, but that got me my name out there. And so then I did this one called Speed Rails because they reached out to me because I had done Bar Boss.
Is that the competition that was in Houston?
Correct. And so I originally applied for because you have to apply in either Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, or Houston. And I applied for the Austin one, but then I found out the tournament was going to be on my wedding anniversary. I like being married, so I was like, well, I can't do that. So I applied to the Houston one. I told the guy, I was like, hey, can you move me to the Houston one? And the guy was like, hey man, look, out of all the years we've ever done this, Houston and San Antonio are the only winners. Dallas, so he's like, if you want to make it, he's like, I recommend you doing the Austin one. I was like, he was like, the Houston one's 100 times harder. I was like, I have to do it. Like, I have to go to the Houston one or something. So he's like, okay, and I did it. And so there's like an elimination round where they pick the 8 fastest. I don't know what the number of 8 in bartenders is, but they picked the 8 fastest bartenders. I went there just to have fun. I did the whole competition blackout. Like, I barely remember touching liquor, right?
Train how you fight.
That I wasn't drinking, right? And if I showed you a picture of my face when they announced my time,
I saw the interviews. I'll try to do a cut in of one.
Let me preface that with, I didn't know I was going to have to do an interview until I was leaving the place. My wife was driving, and they were like, hey, wait, you got to do your interview. And I was like, interview?
For what it's worth, brother, you composed yourself very well.
I had to keep it together for sure.
You're very respectful.
If you see this interview and you see that interview, you're going to see a big difference. If you don't know me, you'd maybe think I'm just slow, right? I was just drunk.
Well, so, and what's the biggest thing that you've learned from these competitions since you've gone?
It's really about getting your name out there, like I said. And now, like, just my competitive nature, I'm too old and broken to play sports anymore. I grew up playing rugby and wrestling and stuff like that. And, I can't risk getting hurt also. And so this is, for me, it's just kind of, digging into my competitive nature, so that
scratching that itch.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. So,
and I got ranked Houston's best bartender because I beat that. Oh, so I got the top 8. Then I went to the Houston final tournament where it was the final 8 of us, and it was set up like a basketball bracket. So it's single elimination, sudden death, and I beat everyone. And I beat everyone because I live in Bryan. But the biggest motivation was, and it wasn't really necessarily the competitors, it was all their like crowd, because they all had a cheering section. I mean, there's like hundreds of people that would watch this thing. And so they would bring in 2 at a time, and you bartend side by side, and it was a speed competition. You also don't know what you're making until it's time to flip the card. And so, the first competitor would walk out and everyone would like cheer, like roaring cheers. And then they were like, from Bryan, Texas, Dustin Batson. And I'd walk in and like, it was just my wife in the back.
Crickets.
Like one single applaud. And I was like, okay. But people were like, hey man, you're like in over your head. Like this is Houston, you're in Bryan, you're like kind of small time. And I was just like, no, I was here to have fun. Now fuck all of y'all, I'm gonna beat everybody. And I did, I smoked everyone. And and now I'm applying for another one called Craft Clash, which is a craft cocktail competition. I say apply, I'm entering it. And then now I compete in June for Texas's best bartender. I have to be the winner of Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio. And if I do, like.
So that's your big goal right now. That's awesome. What is, as far as the competition goes, that's your goal, but what is your goal for here in Bryan, Texas? You're running 2 establishments now, right?
Correct. I have some stuff in the works too. There's 2 that I directly oversee. I would like to get to where I'm involved in a bunch of bars. Thank you. Yeah, I'm involved in a bunch of bars, but more as like a just minority partner. kind of thing. Like I'll help with like the concept, but I don't want to be like in the day-to-day
So
operations.
you're more of like a consultant?
Like I would still own it, but I'd be like, hey, we should do this type of bar here. I'll take 10%, 20%, and then just.
So just slowly expanding from here?
Yeah, you know, obviously having a young daughter, and you know, I'm a husband now. Got married on our 3rd date. Tripping balls on shrooms.
I signed their paperwork.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, Dustin. I tell you all the time, and I know it drives you nuts, but I'm extremely proud of you. I love watching you succeed, and especially these last couple years of our lives together, we've been kind of, you know, step in step together. I got married, you got married, I've got kids, you got kids, and you're doing great.
I got one kid. Hopefully I have another one. This one's Sailor, and if we have another girl, it's gonna be Navy.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's great. I love it. Well, Dustin, thank you very much for having us here today. I really appreciate it. You know, I love sitting down and chatting with you. And you guys have a great day. Eat 'em up, Bearcats.
Batschaefcrazy.
Batschaefcrazy.